I said, who's that? You know, I'm a pianist. I don't go to the movies that often. So I Googled him and I said, oh my God, I know who that is. And he said also, my pupil said, Andrew Harvey, the spiritual leader, is coming. So I arrived at the apartment, and I'm the elder statesman, so they put me at the head of the table. Ethan sat here, and Andrew Harvey sat there. And there started a conversation about performing, why it is that we perform, what it means. And Ethan confessed about his stage fright. And I said to him very boldly, what form does it take? And he said, I have the feeling that I'm going to stop talking. So I told him about an experience I had with a violinist. I heard about this, where Michael Rabin, the famous violinist, had a phobia that he was going to drop his bow. And one night, he let it go on purpose, and he got rid of his phobia. So evidently...
Are you talking about me? Sorry I'm late, everyone. Gosh.
I was telling them how much you ate at the dinner.
Like a pig. Yeah. At least I wasn't late.
What was the first course again at the dinner? Yeah. So what we were talking about is how the film came to be made. And so that was the film.
So then Ethan said, we want to hear you play. So I said, well, I want to do that in my own apartment. Well, that took a year later, because Ethan was making movies, and Andrew Harvey was traveling all over the globe. And Ethan and Andrew and my pupil came to my apartment. And Ethan comes up to me and says, we're going to make a documentary on you. I said, you're what? This was a total shock to me. Nobody ever did that for me. And that's how it happened.
Did you agree right away on how you were going to make the documentary? In other words, for instance, I'm thinking of the scene where you kind of demonstrate how you get into bed.
Well, we went to my pupil's apartment again.
Yes.
And we sat opposite each other at the table with Ryan. And Ethan said to me, the theme of the documentary ought to be how a devotion and a discipline to an art form can not only improve the art form, but radiate out into your life. That's the subject of a book that I wrote, you know, with your own two hands. It suggests that a devotion to practicing properly can make you not only into a better musician, but more importantly, into a better person. And this is what Ethan wanted to project in this documentary.
Ethan, when you walked in, Seymour was actually telling the story about the musician, and I forget who
Michael Rabin.
Yeah, Michael Rabin, who actually conquered his phobia by dropping the bow. Did you arrive at an equivalent?
Ethan, you told me that you stopped talking on purpose and you let out a scream, and the audience thought that was part of the script. Right?
The important thing that I took from not only Seymour, not only that Michael Rabin story, but was the notion of that you didn't need to be ashamed of those feelings. You know, that feelings of, when you're touting yourself as a professional, you know, insecurity and feeling of inadequacy can seem like some kind of horrible blemish that needs to be hidden. And what that can start to do is just start tripping you up, that this idea that you, and what I feel like, I think part of why I made the documentary was simply to spend more time with Seymour and to explore the subject more thoroughly with him. And the idea that not only was it not something to be ashamed of, but it's quite possible something to be proud of. That you are opening yourself up that you're putting yourself out there, and that any sane person who's serious and values what they do might have feelings of nervousness. Do you know that was a sane response?
See, this is what I tell my pupils and everyone, my colleagues. On the day of your performance, when your head and your stomach change places with each other, you go to the mirror, you look at yourself in the mirror and you say, I have a right to be nervous. And you give yourself all the reasons why you have a right to be nervous. You're doing something, of course, this, you have to expect that you're prepared. If you're not prepared, you suffer a stage fright from which there's no return. But if you're prepared, you have a right to be nervous because you're responsible. You're responsible to your art, to the audience, to your own integrity. Right? So once you accept your right to be nervous, you stop fretting about it because you'll never get rid of it. So the only thing you can do is to practice so hard that you perform well in spite of your nervousness. And Ethan does this magnificently. And I have done this. And when I finally learned to do that, I didn't need to do it anymore. And of course, you know the story that's in the documentary about Sarah Bernhardt.
Yes. This is the clip that actually has been
She said to the young
shown
actress,
quite a bit.
honey, when you learn how to act, you'll get nervous.
Yeah,
It reminded me, Seymour and I met, it reminded me of something that, a very similar thing that Tom Stoppard had said to me as I was doing a new Tom Stoppard play, and I was just apoplectic. It was around the time Seymour and I met, apoplectic with nerves, and I said, Tom said, you know, how are you doing? And I said, really, I'm incredibly nervous, and he said, well, you better be. That's interesting. So
so we'll open up